Siri?
Yes, Martin. How can I help you?
Sergio Perez has done a good job for us this year. Siri, extend Sergio Perez's contract.
End Sergio Perez's contract. I can do that for you, Martin.
No. I'm backing Sergio Perez.
Sacking Sergio Perez.
Cancel.
Sergio Perez sacked.
Oh, bollocks.
Accessing designs for 2030 McLaren MP4/28.
Hello and welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed, coming at you from the hinterlands of motorsport with Zog.
Hello.
And Richard.
Hello.
Gareth, I say hinterlands because we're in the sort of almost academic period of Formula One at the moment where the championship's over, there's Brazil yet to come, drivers are still finding their seats in the cars for next year.
Yeah.
Or in the case of some of them like Pastor Maldonado, hopefully not. Although we'll have his money, let's be fair. Have you noticed how Pastor has become the most hated man in Formula One since Fernando Alonso?
He hasn't done himself any favours, I think, by bad-mouthing his team when they haven't done anything. He's just been a bit rubbish and he's like a petulant schoolboy. That's not going to go down with any potential...
Yes, he's the most hated man in Formula One by the Williams team, which is unfortunate because he drives for Williams. What a div.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
can't believe who would do that and start accusing them of deliberately monkeying with his car.
Really?
Mind you, meanwhile, Grosjean is delighted because he's now top of the class and Maldonado is now in the corner with a black mark against him.
And making Grosjean look even better, the return of Heikki to Formula One, which warmed my heart. And he did.
It's good to see him back.
Yeah. I was very pleased to see Heikki there. He was very realistic. He was very... I'm starting to sound like him. He was very realistic. And he had a smile in his eyes. I think it was a smile of relief. Did you see? There was a sort of... I'm back, guys. I'm working again. It's okay. Thank you.
And he did okay. You know, not spectacular, but perfectly good. And
Didn't embarrass himself.
Yeah, I'm sure that was as good as motors were hoping for, so well done to him.
Less fortunate for your favourite Scouse driver, David Valsecchi. Who got passed over for that gig.
Despite looking like Ryan Reynolds a little bit.
Yes, maybe that was where the confusion arose. I mean, he's an actor. He couldn't possibly drive our car in a competitive environment. He should stick to doing rom-coms with Sandra Bullock.
To some extent, it makes you wonder what the point of having your third driver is if you then don't put them in the car when you lose one of your first two.
Sorry, did I say anything out loud there?
There you go, yes.
Yeah. Often the third driver comes with a package of sponsors, which means that when they drive around on Friday and then all the sponsors, the representatives of the company turn up on the Saturday, that driver is now free to press the flesh.
Shake hands with them, yes.
And also, on the whole, a team is not going to be able to get as their test driver, as their third driver, a guy who's going to be as good as Heikki, basically. They're always going to be a little bit like a second-tier driver rather than a first-tier driver because they're prepared to take those more junior posts. But when you do actually lose a Raikkonen, you need to put somebody good in the car. So,
well, exactly. But I suppose if they're just there really to sort of show the sponsors a good time, they might as well just get a girl from Hooters or something to do it. It seems a bit. Let's be honest. I've been to Grand Prix and I've seen the people from the companies that sponsor Formula One teams, and inevitably they're sort of heavy-set businessmen from somewhere in the former Eastern Germany and things like that. Yeah, we make widgets, and not in the computer sense. And they would appreciate a large-breasted girl showing them how tyres work, rather than, I don't know, David Valsecchi, who then goes, no, one day I will drive the car. No, you won't, mate. Not in a race.
We don't normally cut away to a sketch 4 minutes into the programme, but if we did at this point, I get the feeling it would be a sketch about how Jordan chose Jordan to be their Friday driver at this stage, if we could be bothered, but we won't.
No, we won't. I've never known nor cared whether this is true, but did Jordan, the pneumatically breasted idiot, get her name from the Jordan Formula One team because that was her first gig in the world of being a sort of pneumatically breasted idiot?
Well, her real name, of course, is Katie Tyrrell.
Is it? I thought she was called Katie Leighton House.
No, I think that was someone else.
Somebody else.
No, she did do a bunch of PR for Jordan. There are lots of pictures on the internet of Eddie Jordan ogling up said large shelf.
I would imagine
dressed in
that
Jordan kit.
If Eddie Jordan, small man that he is, walked directly into Jordan, the model,
pneumatic,
it would be equivalent to having a small car accident with the airbags going off. His face would be fully protected. Although people who wear glasses, I gather, do suffer when airbags go off. That's true. If you know whether Jordan got her name from the Jordan Formula 1 team, please do keep it to yourself.
So, on to less ridiculous things in Formula 1. Actually, no, returning to something genuinely ridiculous in Formula 1, we still, at the point of recording this show, and it could change in the next 24 hours, don't know where Hulkenberg is going to be next year. Now, if you were Nico Hulkenberg, where would you go? He's been offered a place at Sauber if he wants it. There's the likelihood of him going to Lotus if this financial deal, I forget the name of the corporation who are buying into Lotus, but they're bringing huge amounts of money, allegedly, but it's all taking a long time to get freed up. You know, do you go to Lotus, who've got probably the second best car in Formula 1 at the moment? Although it's next year.
At the moment, one race to go. Next year, rules change.
Or it's also been mooted that he could return to Force India. If you were Hulkenberg, where would you go, Z? Of those three, Sauber, Lotus, Force India.
I'd like to know what Hulkenberg knows about how those three teams are looking going to next year, because he's going to know some things that we don't know. My first thought is that I'd go to Sauber, I think.
Better the devil you know.
Yeah, have a one-year deal back there. See how the different engine manufacturers pan out next year, because I think that's going to be one of the big factors in how all the teams are stacking up against each other next year. You know, sure, there are other rule changes, but the engine changes and the new powertrains are the big thing, and it's going to make a huge difference whether it's Mercedes, Renault or Ferrari who's coming up with the best engine. But I'd have thought Sauber.
Frequently underrated driver Nico Hulkenberg with frequently underrated team Sauber. It seems like a perfect fit. He seems that's his natural home. I wouldn't go to Lotus because I do get the feeling this company that's trying to secure their future is giving them checks and going, don't cash that. Don't cash that yet. Don't, please, God, no, no. I'll post-date it.
Which is a shame, because they have shown this year a lot of ability. Lotus have been able to deliver some results.
They have. I have no interest in Lotus whatsoever, and now that Raikkonen's leaving them, I honestly don't care, and I hope they don't do as well next season. I find them deeply irritating as a team and rather unlikable. And I can't put my finger on why.
Even if the wonderful Hulk goes there, because you don't love him as much as me.
That would give me a new reason. This is me personally, my own prejudices, but I appreciate I'm talking rubbish. But if Hulkenberg went there, I would give me a reason to just about like them. If they don't have Hulkenberg, I mean, I sort of quite like Grosjean in a weird way, but he's also a bit of a buffoon sometimes. But Lotus generally, I don't know what it is. Eric Boulabez, I find him deeply uncharismatic man who wants to be what's-his-flap from Ferrari with his glasses and is hanging around in the pit lane talking to TV people, but he's just not. He looks like he's a sort of slightly odious Burke, and I don't like the fact that they're not really Lotus, and I don't like the fact they're ripping off an old Lotus colour scheme with their black and their gold, and I cannot stand their Twitter hashtags.
I will go with you on the Twitter hashtags.
Oh, they're infuriating. Whoever's doing them should be shot with It's annoying beyond belief.
Eric Boulier, I know from A1GP, he ran the Swiss and French cars enormously successfully in A1GP, and if he's got any say in the matter, I would think he knows how good Hulkenberg is from how he walked A1GP in the years he was there. So I'm hoping Eric will choose Hulkenberg, and if Hulk goes to Lotus, I will love Lotus in a way that I didn't previously. I'm like you, I do struggle with them using the Lotus name. But if it's sanctioned by Norfolk, by Hethel, then that's okay. That makes them Lotus, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, but they could sanction my local corner shop. It wouldn't make it an authentically Lotus product. It would just make it Mr. Khan, but he's got a black and gold awning.
Except that it would make it an authentic Lotus.
Well, I suppose
if Lotus come along and say, this is an authentic product, it is an authentic Lotus product. You might think they're devaluing the brand by spreading themselves so thinly, but if they want to go into corner shops, you know, why not?
Well,
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Yeah. Can they get Nico Hulkenberg to work behind the counter? Because then I'd be interested.
Well, the chances of Nico working in the Lotus corner shop are slim. Let's hope that he doesn't choose Force India next year. If he stays with Sauber, Sauber have got a very quick car. You can't be up there doing fourths and fifths like Hulkenberg is at the moment without having a very quick car. So that's not a bad choice, although historically, if you ever noticed this, Sauber always manage to get their car running really well for the last 2 races of the season. They've done this since the middle 90s. If they came out of the blocks with a rocket car, they'd walk it, but they always manage just at the end. Right, we've done it. Oh, season's over, the rules have
in
changed.
Brazil going, we've really got this. I think we can probably win next week. What?
There's no...
Oh, come on. Oh. Hi, Key. Great to have you back in F1 racing.
Yes, it's great to be driving for Lotus this weekend.
You must be disappointed, though, to get this chance with only 2 races left in the championship.
No, I'm just happy to be here. I'm getting to drive, I'm getting paid.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
I've just had a really interesting week driving a car which doesn't have an engine. Instead of having an engine, it has an electric motor.
So it has a sort of engine,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not an internal combustion engine.
Yeah, you never hear people say electric engine. They say electric
motor,
motor,
no, you're
don't
quite
they?
right, yeah, you're
That's
right,
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I had a Renault Zoe to drive around in, and was it last week or was it 2 weeks ago, Richard? You had that Nissan Leaf. It was 2
It
weeks
was
ago.
2
wasn't
weeks
it?
ago. I came to your house in it.
And how did you get on with the modern electric car ownership experience?
Well, I had it for a week. I think we talked about this on the programme before. I have this theory that now is the time to have an electric car.
Yep.
Because once everyone's got one, you won't be
The
able
incentives to buy them will not be there.
do all the things that you can do at the moment, which is stuff that I did. I came round here to see Gareth, and he said, there's an electric car charging point around the corner. So we went round there.
No one was using
Nissan
it.
had left this little card in the car that is a company called Source who have electric charging points around London. And I subsequently looked into this. You pay, I think, something like £10 a year for this card.
You register. But the electricity that Hackney provide at the moment is free.
It's free, exactly.
That's one of these
As a lot of
incentives
places, yeah.
to get people to drive EVs. If you are a member of Source, which is kind of like your service provider in some ways, you know, it's a bit like buying a car and saying, no, I only put BP petrol in it. Source provide you electricity, but Hackney don't charge them for it, or the other way around. Hackney don't.
Well, anyway,
yeah.
I think it's London
in any
wide
case,
because
it's free,
as far as I
that's-
can understand it was a tenner. It would have been a tenner for the card. Nissan had paid for that very kindly, and I went to this charging point with Gareth. It's a marked electric bay, which nobody was in. Here's where my theory stands up. Parking around here is a nightmare. And if you have a permit, you have to put your little visitors thing in or pay at a machine. You get a maximum of 2 hours. I was parked in that electric car space for sort of three and a half hours for nout. You're getting the car filled up with electricity for nout. Brilliant. Drove it around a bit more. Went to the BBC, go to my office to make Top Gear. And there's a plug point in the car park, so I got the 3-point plug out, stuck it in there, stuck it in the car, spend all day in the office knowing that when I go downstairs the car is not only charged up, but because it's got this app that you can talk to your car with, about an hour or so before I left I could tell it to put the heater on.
Which is lovely. So bottom line, would you be happy to have that as an everyday run around in London?
I think if I was just driving around London, which
Is a fairly important caveat because it's
It is a bit of
smaller
a
mileage
caveat.
and we've got better infrastructure for the recharging. But
I
given
don't. Yeah, I
that
mean, it
caveat-
just seems so rather predictable and boring to point out that electric cars can't do long distances at the moment. It's like pointing out that 2-seater cars can't take 5 people in a
Yeah,
packing
Although
case.
some electric cars can do long distances.
They
This one is,
can.
we should get off.
But
that
this is not to
slightly.
overlook the fact that it is a substantial limitation. For example, the Nissan website, you can say, I want to go from here to here. So I put in my postcode and then I put in the postcode of my family's house up in Cheshire, just out of interest to see what would happen, because I know they have fast chargers in motorway service areas now. What it wanted me to do was an enormous dogleg down the M4, sort of to Bristol, to meet the M5, to go up past Birmingham to meet the M6. So sort of twice as long journey, I think, because it wanted me to intercept the very latest charging points. And it's like, well, that's no good. Even though the M6 is a bloody nightmare at the best of times, it would take me like 8 hours to get there. No good.
But if you have a suitable range extender,
that'll be fine.
rather than a simple battery, then
Yes.
it's...
So anyway, sorry, to just answer your question very quickly. Yes, if I just had a car to tool around London in, I could see... I became slightly obsessed with going and getting my free electricity, again, to try and prove my theory. Now's the time. There's a source point at my local supermarket, and I went there. The fact that I was only nipping in for some bread and milk and things, and knew I was only going to be about 10 minutes. If it had been any longer, again, dedicated parking place, no matter how busy it is, zip in there, charge it up. Lovely.
Ask me the same question.
Gareth, you've just been driving a Zoe. Would you be happy to have that as an everyday run around in London?
Absolutely, definitely. I'm sold, man. I think I'm not just sold on the Renault Zoe, I think I'm sold on the electric car as a concept. I've said I am for a while because when we drove that iX35, the Hyundai fuel cell car, the joy of being wafted along silently becomes absolutely intoxicating. I'll tell you what I've noticed. I've become like an ex-smoker. I now drive around in an electric car, and when you get out and you hear cars go by, wow, they're a bit noisy. And I actually quite like the refinement that comes with an electric car. And I found I deliberately took the kids and their neighbours' kids to school on 2 occasions in the Zoe this week, because, we're going to be a bit late. Don't worry, I'll take them in the electric car. We get in the car, I said, listen to the motor. And they go, OK. And because there's no noise, they stop shouting and they talk quieter in the car. So if you've got kids, having an electric car keeps your kids quieter. I can tell you that.
You might not want to guarantee to all listeners that you will keep their kids quiet.
I can't guarantee that, no. The electric car experience, the Zoe was great. I mean, she's so pretty.
Did you just call a car she?
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah.
Out.
Sorry.
Out now. Sacked from your show.
But she's Zoe.
No. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable.
She is
no,
none of that
no.
anthropomorph.
No.
Really?
No, never, ever.
But my Saurus gold legs. She's
no,
female.
it isn't. You are fired.
Oh, no.
You, Gareth Jones, are dismissed from Gareth Jones on Speed.
Oh. Well, guys, it's been...
Big,
thanks. Hey, good luck with the show.
Yeah, no problem.
And all that. I'm sure you'll come up with a good name for it.
Yeah. Hang on, whoa.
Yeah.
No, you've got to work your notice.
Oh, really? How long is that?
We'll
definitely. That was a close one. That was a cliffhanger, wasn't it?
Verbal warning.
Okay, I can't call her she.
No.
Okay.
Ships only.
It's very pretty.
It is, I agree.
Super duper pretty. That's what got me interested in this car. It was nothing to do with the technology. It's just so pretty. I think that car is Wendy Padbury. Do you remember Wendy Padbury?
Is she a ship or a car?
Hang on.
She was one of the doctor's first...
I had the name.
Yeah,
that was one of the things I was thinking of, but I didn't have the guts to go
She
for
played Zoe, who was there with Fraser Hines in
with
the
William
Patrick
Hartnell,
Troughton and William Hartnell. Troughton, actually, period,
Mm.
And she was just as pretty as this Zoe outside, and I did anthropomorphise. But the whole experience was very good. It was very easy. I can't do what you can do. I can't recharge from a 13-amp plug with the Zoe.
Yeah, you see, that to me just makes it unusable. I mean, did you define that a drawback, or was it not?
To be honest, no, I didn't, because I can't plug it into my house here, and if I wanted to do that, I'd have to have one of these safer charging points fitted, which British Gas will fit for Renault when you buy a car. They'll put it in, it usually costs about £700, I think. They'll put it in for free, and it gives you an overnight charge in 9 hours or something. But exactly as you said, if you go to one of these Polar high-speed charging points, 32 kilowatts, is that what it is, I think, on the motorway, they will charge the battery to 80% of its capacity in 30 minutes. That's a cup of coffee and a bit
of coffee,
a
bite to
burst.
eat.
Yeah. So you can do longer journeys. You have to interrupt them with charging every now and again. But there's also some deal, I think, with Renault, whereby if you buy a Zoe, you get access to a larger Renault car for 2 or 3 weeks of the year if you need to go on long journeys or something. Well, it happens in Europe. I don't know if they do it in the UK.
Yeah.
See, and this is one of the things about
well.
range anxiety and people banging on about how electric cars are useless because of range stuff. You have to be realistic about things, and most people's journeys are overwhelmingly short journeys. You're doing quite short trips. The times that we do longer trips, unless you're a travelling salesman, unless you're doing a lot of motorway miles for work or that kind of stuff, on the whole, most of us, we're making short trips most of the time. Your typical range of your typical electric car is perfectly good for that. And those occasions when you need more range, you've got on the whole either plan for that by getting hold of another vehicle, or perhaps some of these models of vehicle ownership which give you occasional ownership of a big issue with a longer mileage.
Well, you've been writing about the future with Violet for stuff recently, and
we've been doing lots of energy stuff.
Yeah, imagining how cities will operate in the future. And one of the reoccurring themes is this whole car ownership idea. We'll move away from that and we'll just go towards personal mobility. I know they sound like labels, but the idea that you perhaps own an electric car You have access to those vans that are parked in car parks when you need to move things at the weekend or on a long trip. You'll get a car from a car club that comes as part of the deal with your electricity supply. Clever thinking. I'm there.
For those occasional things or anything. Yeah, I'm there. This also gets me to that kind of model of using bigger vehicles, greater load carrying vehicles, means that then for your personal transport you can indulge yourself a little more in what you really want rather than something that's, boringly practical and sensible. Because I was thinking about what would be the electric vehicle that I would choose if I was going for one at the moment, and in all seriousness I would try and build myself an electric car right now rather than go out and buy one. And the way I'd do that would be to get a Westfield or Caterham basic chassis without the engine and transmission and put an electric motor and batteries in instead of an internal combustion engine. And I'm sure I'm not the first person that's thought of doing that. If any listeners have done that, let me know how it worked out and tell me why that's either a really stupid idea and I haven't thought it through, or how incredibly brilliant I was to just think of that. And
so are you going to stick a couple of Hoover motors in it there?
No, there are a couple of specialist companies who supply bits for DIY electric car building. If you decide you want to retrofit your current car that you were thinking of moving on anyway, if you decide you want to retrofit that with an electric powertrain, they will sell you the batteries and electric motors and controller hardware and all the stuff you need to replace your internal combustion engine with electric bits. This website I was looking at the other day, they do stuff for vans as well as for cars. How hard can it be? Can't be that hard to get an existing kit car chassis. It's going to be a bit easier to work with in any case. Stick an electric motor in there. I really reckon that is a very, very doable thing, and for London Runner, that would give me a great sporty little electric go-kart.
Funny what Zog's saying there. Nissan have pretty much done exactly that at the moment. Have you seen this car that they've announced that they're going to build called the Blade Glider? Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Basically, same concept as the Nissan Delta Wing, narrow track front end, Delta configuration to it. Driver sits in the middle, rather like the McLaren F1, with two outrigger passengers slightly sat behind. What they did for the Mule at the moment, taking the Ariel Atom chassis, opening that out into a triangle from what do we call that shape? A rod, I suppose, to a triangle. And that's what they've done. They've stuck in, they've got electric motors, and off they go. And they can do stuff like differential speed control on left and right wheel at the rear to give it better turn-in and grip.
Oh, and I'm sure they'll be doing a much cleverer thing than I would be doing with what I'm planning in my head at the moment, which is,
two-scale electric controllers.
But you see, but what I'm thinking is hub-mounted motors are ideally the way to go, but I wouldn't be able to do that. It would have to be using your regular drive shafts and an inboard motor. It would also be a more basic thing and a sort of 10 grand roughly budget. Certainly the prototype of that Nissan's going to be a whole lot more than that.
Yeah.
But,
so I have to say, I can't wait to see the Zog Mark 1 electric sports car. That's going to be some piece of kit, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Hello?
Zog, it's Gareth.
Hey, Gareth. Hey, I'm in the car.
You're in the car? Which car?
The Zog's Zanussi. It works, man. It works.
That's great news. How's it going?
Yeah, all right. No, it's good. Yeah, handles square. It's all good. Hang on a minute. I'm going to have to call you back. Your spin cycle's about to start. Hang on.
Gareth Jones on speed.
Well, until Zog's remarkable revolutionary electric lightweight sports car comes available, the rest of us are stuck with the electric cars that we've driven now. The Tesla we drove was fantastic.
Absolutely.
The Hyundai iX35 we drove was fantastic.
Speaking of Tesla, there's a Tesla showroom in the Westfield shopping centre.
Just
It's
opened.
there.
Yeah,
yes.
Has
it caught fire yet?
When I saw it, it was still remarkably unsmoky. Yes,
Saw a good
untainted
demo.
by fire.
Saw a good demo the other day about battery swap on the Tesla Model S with Elon Musk on stage. They drove a Tesla Model S and said, we're going to show you how quick we can do a battery swap here, but look on the VT screen and here's a guy going to the fastest fuel station in Los Angeles. So he pulls up and he starts filling in the car and the Tesla Model S comes in and they swap the battery and the car drives off. and the other guy is still just about putting his money in. Then another Tesla S comes in and they take the battery out and put the new battery in, and robots automatically torque the bolts back to where they were. They could have done 3 cars in the time it took to fill one regular Audi, which I thought was a great demo. It was a good bit of showmanship. They're good at that.
Smart guy Elon Musk will have a lot of time for it.
Yeah, likewise. Equally, full respect to Renault, who have pretty much given up on petrol cars in the UK, really. They're really majoring on their electric stuff at the moment. Can't wait to drive the Twizy. But the thing I like best about the Zoe, really lovely, compliant Renault, slightly rolly chassis, which was just great, but it really stuck, even though it had these low rolling resistance eco tyres, you know, and it was the 17-inch rims, which cost you something like 6 miles off your range of a full charge, apparently. It was still really grippy. I liked it. How was the Leaf to drive?
It's all right. I think the best thing about it is that instant torque you get from electric motors. That's the big thing for electric cars. For me, I just find that's a novelty.
Instant delivery.
Again, why now is the time to have one, because they feel a bit novel still. And also, you can sneak up on your neighbours and run them over. We got out of the way.
I didn't sneak up on anyone because I left the sound on. And in the Zoe, you can choose 3 different sounds.
Yeah. Can you? Oh, really?
Yeah. The sound, one's called Pure, one's called Sport, and I think the one's called Death Ray Laser Weapon or something. But listen, this is the sound. I've recorded the sound of the Zoe. This is what it sounds like. What it sounds like is like a vague alien landscape. Someone moaning in the distance. Oh, it's quite a nice sound.
So it's not trying to do an engine sound?
No, it's more like a sci-fi note. I don't know what note it is, a C sharp or something. I'll have to check it and tune it. That's quite a nice sound. I liked it. You can turn it off completely if you want and go super stealth.
Yeah, it's
The
okay.
Leaf-
I prefer it to an engine sound.
It does something similar, but I don't know what it sounds like from outside because I was driving it, but I thought it was the electric motor because it's a bit of a whine. And then I realised you could turn it off and then it becomes blissfully quiet. It's odd, actually. I found myself driving along with the radio off, just
Yeah,
to,
me
as
too, me
Depeche
too.
Mode once said, to enjoy the silence.
Yes.
Again, it's a novelty, one that would wear off eventually, but in the course of a week driving the car, I actually quite enjoyed it. It was
Yeah.
almost like just a sort of respite from
Yeah.
noise, which is an interesting thing. It's like going for a quiet poo and just going, no one can bother me in here.
It's funny that
It's a very strange analogy, and I apologise for that, but that's the first thing that cropped into my head. It's just, having those blissful moments of peace in an otherwise busy day.
Yeah.
If listening, I didn't poo in your car. I'm just saying, it's sort of, I'm trying to compare it to something where you get
Richard,
a
stop
moment.
digging.
I'm digging.
How much is a Leaf?
Oh, God, they're about 25 grand. The second-hand ones are quite cheap. They're depreciating catastrophically, as far as I can tell.
Zoe's a lot cheaper. Zoe's 15 grand.
Is that including the 5 grand you get from the government
Yeah.
at the moment? Again,
Yeah.
this is a time to buy an electric car.
Yeah,
The government
we've got the nice
throws
subsidies,
£5,000
And
at
you
it.
know what you were saying about don't buy an electric car, lease an electric car?
Yeah, I think so.
The Zoe, you buy the car, but you lease the batteries. Now,
Well, that's annoying then, because if you go, I don't want to pay the battery lease anymore, you're stuck with a car that you own, but you can't. How does that work?
Well, the batteries stay in the car. You pay £70 a month for as long as you own the car. It's just,
Hang on, so how much is the
fuel.
car?
15 grand.
So the car's 15 grand and then
Yeah.
it's £70 a month.
On top of that, yeah. And the £70 a month gives you, if the batteries go below 80% performance, they swap the batteries out, give you a new set of batteries. And when you sell the car, you sell the contract with the car to someone else. It's a fixed period contract, but you can opt out. There are always ways of opting out. But I think that's the best of both worlds.
No, I
solution.
don't. I think that sounds
Well,
dreadful.
really?
Yeah, that's an awful scam. That's just going, here's your car, but you've got to lease the petrol tank or lease the seats.
No, but to look at this
I've
other-
just paid you for it. Let me keep it.
But to look at this differently, those batteries and battery life, that's definitely an
Yes,
area
it's
that
the
people have
big
anxiety
concern,
about.
yes.
What
Yeah.
happens if after 2 years they're like my smartphone battery and they're only working half as well as they were when I bought
Yeah,
the car?
yeah.
I'm not going to be happy. So in that sense, leasing makes sense. And I think this is one of these things in terms of electric cars that we're going to see what model of sort of ownership and payment and so on people are happiest with and works out best.
Well, the one that caught my eye was the BMW i3 scheme, which is where you're leasing the whole car. I think you put 2 or 3 grand down as a deposit, which you don't get back. That's the downside, but then it's sort of £300 a month, but you're leasing the whole car. And again, what they're trying to do, and I see what Renault are trying to do, is they're trying to assuage people's fears about the batteries going. And I understand that Nissan, the warranty on the batteries is supposed to be your peace of mind. So you've bought the whole car with the Leaf, but if you go after 2 years, look, my battery is definitely not holding charge, then you go back to them and obviously you've got a big fight with the warranty department, but in theory, again, there are all these various manufacturers just trying to offset a natural concern about battery cars. You can see why they're doing it. But for me, you're buying a technology that's evolving really fast. I would go where you just lease the whole car. If you're that interested in getting an electric car and you want the instant torque, and I mean, something I find with the Leaf, it's got a very nice ride as well. I think partly because it's got a low central gravity and it's sort of actually quite heavy. And it's a very relaxing city car, just purring along. Once you get over the range anxiety, the first day I drove it was the most stressful journey of my life. It was fully charged, but I was just still like, I've got to conserve momentum. Just
the same.
very gentle. After a week, particularly because I've got obsessed with charging up everywhere I went for free. Fine, if there's a traffic light just about to go amber, I'll just clog it through and instant through, and except there wasn't even that noise. I'd
have an electric car tomorrow, and I would say to anyone who's about to spend 15-20 grand on a car, if you've got a journey which is less than 70 miles every day, what's the range of the Zoe? Something like 102 miles if you are very light-footed, or 65 miles if you're me generally. If you can do that, and that's your general driving duties, go for it, man. It'll save you a fortune in fuel, and it's genuinely refined.
Well, this is my closing thought on electric cars. I think there are certain very appealing things, certainly about that Leaf. I'd be interested to drive the Zoe, although I think it seems like it has some limitations. But so does the Leaf, the range being the most obvious one. But there's something appealing. The torque is appealing. The silence is appealing. I do believe now is the time to get an electric car, because, most of all, they are cars for cheapskates. Because you can run them on nothing at the moment. And that will change when more people have got them.
We've only got a couple of minutes left, but I just want to draw your attention, while we're on the subject of electric cars, to Formula E. You know, we started the programme saying we're going into the hinterlands of motorsport at the moment. You know, one more race and it all goes quiet. Formula E, bit more information about the series is starting to emerge. It's going to be a winter series. We know that. It'll start when F1 goes off air, and it'll run through the winter months right the way through to June, the last race, which is literally round the corner from here at the Olympic Park in Stratford. In June 2015, that'll be, and that's the finale to the season. It starts in Beijing, they go to Hong Kong, they go to Uruguay, they go to Brazil, they go to Rome, they're racing around the Colosseum in Rome.
So that I'd like to see.
Yeah.
I've just noticed one small problem about the schedule, though, that the end of that first season, that's not going to clash with Le Mans, is it? You're talking about June.
No, it's the end of June is the race. Le Mans middle of June. We're all right. Yeah, it's a bit of a worry. Because I intend to go to this. I'm fascinated by Formula E. And the car looks good. Have you seen the car? It looks pretty capable, 150 mile per hour thereabouts at the moment. And the teams, you know the teams who are going to run the cars?
I mean, tell us all about this, because I haven't heard any recent news about Formula E, but my basic take on it is I'm very interested in it. I want it to work out, and I wasn't that taken by the looks of the car, I must admit. And I don't like this idea of drivers changing cars, as apparently they're going to be doing. But I'm well disposed towards it. So what's the latest?
The teams, as you know, Drayson is running a team, and he knows electric cars, being the lightweight electric car world land speed record holder at the moment. Andretti Racing, Michael Andretti, has come on board. Dams, this is slightly ridiculous, but the Dams team, who Eric Boulier used to work for when he was running, funnily enough, the A1GP French and Swiss teams, Dams, they are in partnership with Alain Prost, and they've rebranded the team as E-Dams. I kid you not.
Are they looking for cheesy sponsorship here?
Yeah, I wonder. They're French, they should be
Any
Dutch.
news on the Buy Gum team and whether they're going to...
Dragon Racing are also in there, and that is Roger Penske's son. So that's America having two teams now. Aguri Suzuki, ex-Formula One bloke, has entered a Super Aguri Formula E team from Japan. Team China, who used to run the A1GP car in China. You can see why I like this. It's a lot of A1GP. It runs in the winter, the same people, etc. But one of the most interesting things is the announcement of the latest team last week, which is ABD, or as they're going to be called, ABD Formula E Team Audi Racing.
This is the Audi tuning house.
ABD, yeah, it's your man ABD, and they're getting factory help from Audi. So Audi are sort of just keeping their hands involved in Formula E, and if a manufacturer like that are tweaking with it, because Renault are already in there, McLaren are involved, Williams are involved, they designed and built the engineering of the car. hopefully we'll see some big players. What you need is big names. Like A1GP, you're going to have to pick up drivers on the way up to F1, and the odd driver, I hate to call them F1 rejects, but guys who didn't quite get a seat. However, if Maldonado goes to Formula E, I'm not interested.
Quite literally, sparks will fly.
Yeah! You've been listening to Gareth Jones on Speed with Richard Porter.
Goodbye.
With Zog.
Goodbye.
And with me, Gareth. See ya.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!